I know you've been waiting for me for a very long time. I think it's over 3 weeks since I was last here with you. I have a reason. I have many reasons. One of the biggest ones is that it was my... Sit down before I tell you this, because I don't know if you'll believe it, but it was my 50th reunion from college. I know I graduated high school when I was like 13. Not really, but I was a little bit younger than the rest of my classmates. There's stuff going on in there, you know, I can't help it. So there were a lot of festivities back on campus surrounding this Jubilee. What do they call it? My Jubilee year. So at the end of this pretty brief video for me, you'll see the procession that I marched in on what's called Class Day, which is different from graduation, it's different from reunion. It's a day just devoted to the undergraduates. They set up a tent, they have their valedictorian speakers and all of that stuff. So they gave me an academic gown to wear, which was really kind of fun. I'm glad it wasn't a super hot day because they're not a breathable, nice material. Anyway, it was a lot of fun. And then about 10 days later, I was back on campus for the festivities surrounding reunion. Now it's everybody's reunion, but they called out our class and the class that was class of 2000 because it's their silver reunion. And at the end, I'm going to put a lot of footage for you to look at. I take you on a tour of the beautiful campus of my university. Anyway, in terms of knitting, I don't have a lot to show you because it's very rare for me, but I'm working on a test knit. Something came up on Facebook. I saw the picture and I thought, okay, it's not vintage, but it's very romantic looking. It has a lot of lace. And I thought, you know, it's kind of fun to participate in one of those because you develop a community. So there's a Facebook page that's private just for about 25 of us who are knitting the various sizes for this designer. Her name is Nikollet Corley. I had never seen her work before. And I have to say, she gave me a little bit of a grilling before accepting me. She looked at my Ravelry page and somehow she wasn't detecting that I like to knit with tiny needles. Here and there are a few things where I'm using a size 5 or, oh, God forbid, a size 8. But what about the things that I've knit on size 2s and 3s? I don't know. She just didn't pick up on that. But then I highlighted for her, yes, I have done the genie on a size 1, fair out, it's pretty complicated. Anyway, I see why she was trying to weed out, like separate the men from the boys, so to speak. This sweater is a lot of work. I can't really show it to you because the pattern's not released yet. I will, but I can talk a little bit about it. I might give you like a little, like a quick Craig Ferguson kind of a thing. But I wanted to show you the yarn I'm using. This is pretty hilarious. I bought 4 skeins of this yarn. It's Cascade Heritage Silk. I bought it at the Big Apple Knitters Guild annual sale at very deep discount. The color really grabbed me. Why? Because I had already purchased this as the accent color on my Sock Monkey sweater. I'll put a picture here in case you're new to this channel and you haven't seen it before. But this is Cascade Heritage Merino, not silk. This is a blend. I think of silk and merino. But could the colors be any closer? They're both fingering weight. Unfortunately with this, I didn't inspect the labels on the 4 skeins. And now that I'm winding the yarn by hand and meticulously peeling off the label, I noticed I have 2 different dye lots. Fortunately, they're very close, but I think it is visible. I started alternating where there's a transition from lace to stockinette, and you can see it, but I think that I have enough of this dye lot that I can do most of the front from the lace yoke downwards, and probably one sleeve, and then the other sleeve will be the other dye lot. And I don't think you'll be able to notice that this sleeve is not exactly the same color as this sleeve, because they are very close. Anyway, that was like a bummer. So let that be a lesson to you. If you're buying yarn like at a thrift store or something, do check if the label is on it to see what is the dye lot, and if you're buying more than one skein, do they match? At least, you know, if you know ahead of time, you're not disappointed. I was like really disappointed. I wound this by hand. I've said it before, so if you've been with me in the past, you'll know I live in a small apartment in Manhattan. I don't have room for extra gadgets and accoutrements, so I don't have a Swift, I don't have a winder, but I wound this by hand, and it is center pull, so I can work off of both ends if I ever need to. I have my swatch, I could show you that. Hang on. So in her pattern, she's calling for a gauge of 7 stitches to the inch with fingering weight on a size 2 needle. So I only knit this much, and I could see already that I was like right on the money. I was getting that gauge on that size needle with this yarn. So I stopped. I guess what I could say is there's a beautiful, just beautiful lace yoke, and then the body is stockinette, but it has really nice detail on the cuffs and at the hem, which is what attracted me. Instead of a ribbed waist, which is what so many sweaters have, it has a very pretty edging. Possibly not my next episode, but there's a deadline late June, so I'm not sure I'm going to be finished. I have my fingers crossed. It's supposed to be 6 weeks from the time we started. Getting through the lace really took me a long time. But now I'm into the stockinette part, so I'm flying. So later on this month, or maybe early next month, I'll be able to show you hopefully a finished object. I have no finished objects to show you today because I've been working exclusively on that to try and meet the deadline. But since I last saw you, I was working on another sweater before I stumbled upon the test knit, which is this 1930s pattern, well, mashup of 2 patterns. I don't know, the camera doesn't really pick up. There's like really pretty texture, but it looks much better in person. Maybe when it's, when it's blocked, I think you'll see that they're like a checkerboard kind of motif. I just started to bind off at the underarm. So, you know, it's one of those sweaters that's kind of short between the underarm and the waist, which was the fashion in that time. So yeah, I mean, this is easy knitting. I can do this on the subway, but now that I'm into the stockinette on the red sweater, I can do that on the subway too. So this has really been on ice for a few weeks, pretty much. And I won't return to it until I'm done the test knit, just because that has a deadline and my other knitting projects do not. So the last thing I'll say, since I don't have any acquisitions, is that the reason I don't have stash is that I tend to buy yarn as I'm embarking on a project. So I made an exception last November with the Guild's big sale. I bought this yarn, this, like I call it wild rice, sort of like, you know, beigey, multicolored. It's like a variegated beigey gray kind of yarn. I think wild rice is apt. So I bought this. I bought the lavender yarn for the sweater I showed you last time. I'll put a picture here in case you haven't been here. And this red yarn for the current project. So all three of those purchases from November are either works in progress or finished object. None of them are in stash. I'm curious about the rest of you, what your philosophy is on stash. Do you just buy because you see something beautiful, or do you buy as you're about to knit a new project? I've had discussions with other knitters on this topic. I'll put a link up here in this corner where you can go back and look at one of those episodes, but there are a couple different ones. So if that's a topic of interest to you, you might be enticed into watching some of my older podcasts where other people weigh in on that topic besides just me. So that's all I have for you. I'm so sorry. That's why I held off on recording for a while. But from here till the end, you're going to see some pictures and videos of my recent walk down memory lane with my reunion. I'll see you next time. Take it easy. Let me introduce you to my alma mater. There she is. This is the famous Low Library, the seat of the administration of Columbia University. I'm going to take you on a little tour. I'm here for my reunion, and I just want you to see how beautiful the campus is. It hasn't changed too much since I was a student here. I might not be able to show you the whole campus, but I'll take a stab at it. Kent Hall. I think this is called East Hall. It was once, I think, an insane asylum before the campus was built. Some of these trees were babies when I was a student here. Campus was designed by famous architects McKim, Mead, and White, so there's a real symmetry. I'll get a map of the campus to show you. Everything that's on the east side of the campus is replicated pretty much on the west side. So here we have a Rodin thinker. And this is the chapel. This is the philosophy building. These old trees really give the campus a lot of charm. As do the bricks. Intricate brickwork, and every building is slightly different. The corner treatment, even if the buildings are very similar, the corners are usually decorated a little bit differently. Over the years, they had to expand the campus, so now let me actually take you up here. Up these steps, come to the newer part of the campus. Some modern buildings you can see. This is a bridge that crosses over Amsterdam Avenue. So you can see cars. traffic below. That's the law school. Here's a Henry Moore sculpture. That thing pivots. I believe that's a new dormitory since I was a student. My alma mater's been in the news quite a bit recently. Unfortunately, President Trump has pulled a lot of funding, which affects research laboratories. And there have also been a lot of campus protests. That's the dome of Low Library up there. It's such a beautiful building. It's sort of built in a square. Each side of it is pretty much the same except that front entrance with all the columns and stairs leading up to it. Oh, good, the doors to the chapel are open. I can take you inside. There are a number of these benches around the campus. There's a special name for that. I'll have to look it up, I forget. Not a word that I use often. There's another set of pretty gates. I think this is the side of Avery, the architecture school, architecture building. You can see sculpture throughout the campus. That modern building is the business school. Other modern building back there, that's the engineering school. It was a low building when I was a student there. They added on, built it up. This is probably my favorite of all the buildings, Avery. The library inside, let's see if it's open. It's a world-famous architecture library. They have original drawings for many famous buildings in their collection. I'll show you the ceiling. This pretty little staircase that winds up and around. I used to really love studying in here. To me, it was like a little jewel box, one of the smaller libraries. And there are staircases that take you up to these catwalks.
The landscaping is beautiful. So many courtyards with the lovely hedges and beautiful plantings, and the way it's structured with symmetry and the red brick. It's very beautiful.
That's the back of Low Library.
Look how big these windows are, very tall and wide, and even the higher floors, the second and third floor. Well, actually the third floor looks a little smaller than the first and second. I've never seen such big windows.
You know what, we have time. I like to go over to Havemeyer. So this is Schermerhorn, and back here we have Fairweather. Over the years, they connected the building in the center with the building on the right with some underground tunnels. I think there is a network of tunnels underneath the whole campus, which during the riots of the Vietnam era in the 60s, late 60s, I think people were using. Then they locked them. Can't really get to them anymore, I don't think. So I'm going to take us into the center of the campus. You could draw a line from 120th Street to 114th Street, and it would bisect the campus. That would be right through the center of Low Library, which is ever present. So from right about here, everything that's on the left is replicated on the right. This building is sort of in the center of your screen off to the right, is Havemeyer. There's a lecture hall inside of here, 309A, that's often seen in movies. I think one of the Ghostbusters films. I'll take you inside. We should be able to see it. Here's a lion. He wasn't here when I was a student. He's a welcome addition, though. This is the mascot. In the background, you have Pupin Hall, the physics building. There's mathematics. Notice how those corners are different. Actually, these two buildings, the corner treatment is the same, but often they're different. On the other side, remember, they were smooth. At least I think. Might have to have another look at that. But certainly there are some details that make each building a little bit unique. This gate, below that you have Broadway, and the building that you see straight ahead is part of the campus of Barnard College. which is the sister school. All right, as promised, I'm going to try and take you into Havemeyer. Oh, okay. No go. We were able to get in after all. This is where chemistry lectures took place. I'm sure they still do. They don't build them like this anymore. And these chalkboards slide up and down. So when the professor finishes writing something on the lower board, he can flip it up, or she, rarely, or pull it back down. There is that little stair I forgot to show you that goes up to that balcony. It says Havemeyer Hall was built between 1896 and 1898 under the leadership of Charles Frederick Chandler. It provided research and teaching facilities for faculty and students specializing in industrial, inorganic, organic, physical, and biological chemistry, etc., etc. And it was put here by the American Chemical Society in 1998. Somebody received the Nobel Prize in 1934 for research done here. 6 others received the Nobel Prize. And it happens to say the Grand Lecture Hall in the center remains the signature architectural feature of Charles Follen McKim's original design. Love it. So this building was not here when I was a student. The lower floor was. That was like a student lounge. And then we have Le Marteleur. He's the symbol of the mining school, which was the origin of the engineering school. Back there, that's 125th Street, and on the other side of it, that Gothic-looking building is Teachers College, which is one of the graduate schools of the university. It's not on the main campus, it's just outside.
Palettes of different geometries and mixtures to have cool geometries to play with. From there, we do very careful accounting of our gas and pressures and do a very controlled release into here. This is a vacuum chamber. This whole thing is our pellet injector and formation device. This was designed and made in conjunction with Oak Ridge National Lab. And inside of here, so you have a guard vacuum, and then you have a barrel that looks like this. The gas flows in through feed-throughs here, and this is a cold head on a compressed helium refrigerant loop that will get down to 4.2 degrees Kelvin. And there's a copper lattice conducting the cold to various zones inside of there. One of the copper pieces goes directly from the cold head to this part of the barrel. So this zone can get down to 4.2 Kelvin. And then we have heaters here and here to trim the edge of the pellet. As the gas flows in, it directly desublimates in monolayers onto the barrel wall, just like concentrically filling in until it's solid, there's no hole, and then you'll see the pressure start to come up. And
to mitigate some of the runaway electrons, essentially during your disruption, speed up to relativistic speeds and can kind of bore a hole through your wall. It can be quite expensive, can shut down your machine for a few months. Not a great idea.
It's a standard one. It's the same research reactor that's like at the University of Virginia. But instead, well, since you can't really demolish a huge chunk of concrete like this once you pour it, we've used it for other things. So we have an experiment up there called the collisionless Torella experiment, which is an experiment that we use to study the effects of Earth's magnetic field. So it's a dipole that with a little ball in the center that looks very similar to Earth, and we can study how things interact with Earth's magnetic field. A lot of alumni from this experiment worked with like NASA and just on space plasmas.
Now I'm on the southern part of the campus. This is Butler Library. They have tents set up for reunion weekend. Across the way are 2 dormitories. I, however, lived in that dormitory and that dormitory in the background. And that one on the left. Normally these tents aren't here, but they have that all set up for this special reunion weekend. Here's the journalism school. Just want to get up here to show you College Walk. This is the main cross-campus artery from Broadway. Over there, see the cars going by. That's Broadway. And this walk continues straight across the campus over to Amsterdam Avenue. You can see the traffic light down there.
Called In Game, and that'll be danced by Jillian Davis and Joe Gonzalez. The music is by Post Malone, and it happens in a very rebellious part of the ballet that is about 45 minutes, but here it is, you're gonna see about 5 minutes of it.